12 o'clock, welcome in. It is the halftime show here on The Game. Tyler Head, Terry Ford, along with you on this Tuesday, getting you set for SEC tournament action as the Gamecocks get set to take on Alabama coming up a little right at 2 hours from now, I guess. Pregame coverage will start in a little over an hour at 1:15 right here on The Game. The first pitch coming up around 2 o'clock. Really depends on how long it takes LSU and Georgia to play. Second game usually starts about 30 minutes after the first one. And thankfully, looking at the weather right now, I don't think we're going to have any weather delays in Hoover. Today looks bright and sunny. Let's see. It looks like the rest of the week actually looks like it's going to be okay. And if you've followed SEC baseball for any period of time, you know that Hoover, Alabama is notorious for rain this time of year, where inevitably you're going to have one game get pushed back, which pushes back the rest of the week, and then suddenly you have two teams playing at 2 a.m. trying to wrap up a day. So right now, knock on wood, looks like the rest of the week's going to be okay, and certainly for today at least, not going to have any delays for the game. So South Carolina and Alabama should be good to start right around 2 o'clock this afternoon. And this is two teams that come in here very similarly. 13 and 17 records overall in the league. Carolina, we've talked about very good in the RPI in the top 20, Alabama in the same way. But both teams looking for a little bit of a spark. Alabama lost 2 out of 3 this past weekend against Auburn to wrap up the regular season. We obviously know about South Carolina losing their past 6 in a row, trying to avoid a historic 7-game losing streak coming up today, something that hasn't happened since, the Nixon administration. So both teams looking to gain a little bit of a foundation under themselves before next week's NCAA tournament, which we did learn South Carolina is a 3 seed in Clemson's regional based on the latest D1 baseball projection. So that should tell you that no matter what happens today, they're in the tournament. But regardless, you want to get at least one win in Hoover to give yourself something to go into next week with.
We've said this. The metrics tell you they're in.
Yes.
But the metrics don't pick the tournament.
They don't.
Human beings do. And if human beings are sitting in a room, I guarantee you this. One guy is going to do this. Wait a minute. We actually going to put a team in our tournament that's got a 7-game losing streak? Well, what the hell are we doing? We're rewarding a team that hadn't won a game in 3 weeks? Put them in the tournament? You know that's going to come up.
That is, and that is something that again, we talked about this. Should the last 10 games hold all the weight when it comes to selection? It shouldn't.
Not.
But we can't, as humans, we can't help but look and say, where is this team at right now? I know what they did back in March. I know what they did back in April. I know what all the metrics say. But where is this team right now? What kind of baseball are they playing at this point in May? And right now, South Carolina is not playing good baseball.
No, and here's the thing. As much as and I say this, I've been like this before we're doing this. We're not obviously sitting here. We're going to be body of work people because the body of work plays to your narrative of making the tournament. Yes, of course. But in general, I'm a body of work guy. I rail on this with the NCAA tournament. I think you need to look at a whole season. If not, why are you playing the whole season if it doesn't matter?
Right.
But what I'm trying to say is it only takes a few people in that room to start bringing this up. So what you want to do is squash it by winning today. There's a movie called 12 Angry Men. You ever heard of that movie?
I think so.
Everybody starts off thinking a guy's guilty. One guy starts putting it out there about innocence. I think that's when Guilty, Innocent. I haven't seen the movie in forever. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden the room starts slowly flipping around. More and more people are now starting to waver and change their thought and change their vote. You don't want to be that committee in that room and some guy stands up and says, we can't put a team in the NCAA tournament on a 7-game losing streak. We've never done that before ever. Or if they have, who knows? I can't find it in research.
I was going to say, it probably doesn't happen too often.
So you don't want that seed getting dropped in that room where all of a sudden you get a 12 Angry Men scenario and they're actually fighting to see if you even deserve to be there. So that is done if you win today.
Right.
You're in, it's over. Yeah, you're going to be a 3 unless you make a big run at Hoover, which typically doesn't happen for South Carolina. But just get a W today, and we can all drop this.
We can, we can drop that from saying, okay, well, I don't know if they're going to be in the tournament or not. But then we have to have the other conversation of, well, you're in the tournament. but what can you actually do? And look, a lot's going to happen over the course of the next couple of days with the respective conference tournaments. So, these seedings and all that kind of stuff, projections are going to change between now and next week. But in my opinion, regardless of where South Carolina gets dropped in, I'm not really going to have a whole lot of confidence in what they're going to be able to do in that regional, wherever that may be, and whatever teams they face, just because they haven't shown me a whole lot lately, particularly from the pitching standpoint, which, again, if you don't have pitching, you're not going to make it far in the NCAA tournament.
Right, and we're going to fire up some Mark Kingston with his presser before the trip to Hoover. And he talks about, the players and they're resilient, the team's resilient. And I'm not saying that's not true, but I'm saying, what are you supposed to say as a coach?
Yeah, oh man, these guys are down on themselves. They're depressed. There's no confidence in this team whatsoever. No, he told us the right things, but at the same time, we're like, okay, well, does that mean you're going to play better?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's what really matters.
All I know is this. You've seen this team over 6 games, and it feels like there's moments in these losses where it looked like they were almost, oh, no, here we go again. And you don't want to get that way. You don't want to be the, oh, no, here we go again guy. And
I go back to Friday's game, which was game 2 against Tennessee. Carolina gets 3 runs in the second inning. Garrett Gainey is dealing. Is having a great, 5 innings or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And in the back of my mind, I was just waiting. Because I knew at some point the other shoe was going to drop, and whether that be Garrett Gainey giving up a lot of runs or Gainey goes out after having a great performance and then the bullpen blows everything up. And that's exactly what happened. Garrett Gainey started to give up runs, bringing guys from the bullpen. They can't stop the bleeding either, and suddenly you look at it, it's an 8-3 game, and you're like, well, South Carolina's not going to come back now.
Look, think about life. We all in life have those stretches where we do this. Here we go again.
Yeah.
And as much as we all try to fight it, you get to a point where when everything's going sideways, or when you go like this, like you just said, okay, when's the shoe going to drop? It's probably going to drop on my head,
yes.
right? Because that's the way this is going.
Right.
You don't want your players to get that way, where you're in the field, or you're at the plate, or you're in the dugout, and if something goes wrong, you don't want to go like this. Here we go again. And it's one thing for fans to do it, or for us as yappers of sports to be sitting there watching a game going, oh, God, here we go again. Because, again, we're just observers, right?
Sure.
You don't want the dudes in the fight to be on the field going, oh, bleep, well, here we go again.
And I brought this up about, just talking with Weston Chris a little bit earlier. We've all played baseball at various levels, rec league, high school, whatever it may be. We've probably all been on good teams. Mm-hmm. And we've probably all been on bad teams. Mm-hmm. When you're on a good team, you're good. You have an air of confidence about you, and that affects the way that you play. When you're on a bad team, as Wes brought up in the last hour, you're trying to make up for that by playing too hard. Mm-hmm. by forcing things too much. And again, South Carolina, from a whole standpoint this entire season, has not been a bad team from point A to point B, but they're not playing good baseball right now. So how do you attack a tournament, not only this week, but next week as well, knowing that you're having to make up for some inefficiencies? Are you trying too hard? Are you trying to hit a home run on every single at-bat, swinging for the fences every single time? Because when you do that, that's usually going to not end up too well. Are you trying to are you trying to fool every single hitter? Are you trying to do something complicated on the mound to try and make up for the inefficiencies you have in pitching here as of late? I don't know, but if you try and do all those things, you're probably not going to end up winning these games.
Yeah, and the other flip side is, are you defeated in general?
Right.
Because, look, again, last time I checked, the people playing these games are human beings.
Yep.
And when things are going bad for a decent period of time, it's tougher and tougher to get up every day and go, we're going to go get them today, man.
Right.
It's just, and again, look, Mark has got to say we're resilient. We're in the fight. He can't get up and say, I don't even have confidence we're going to win a game. You can't do that. Everything's got to be in a positive mode. But these guys, deep down inside, how do they feel at this point?
And there's a difference between confidence in practice and confidence in a game, because he's talking about this from the standpoint of, hey, we just practice, we're feeling good and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. That's great. You can be as confident as you want in practice. What happens when the game actually starts? What happens when you are taking on another team and you're going up against high-level pitching, you're going up against great offensive players like Russell Gage coming up today against Alabama? That's the confidence I'm worried about. That's the resiliency I'm worried about.
Or this one, ready? You feel good in practice, right? You feel great.
Hey.
You go out in the first inning and give up a 2-run homer.
hey,
How you
look,
feeling now?
Exactly. We've all been. I had a season in baseball when I was a kid where I couldn't get a hit to save my life. I think I had one hit the entire year. It was a very bad season. But man, before the game in the batting cage, I was Babe Ruth. I could hit everything inside. I looked amazing. And my coach would say at the end or right before the game starts, don't be a batting cage hero. Go out there and translate it onto the field. It's great that you're having a good practice. That is fantastic. It's better than hearing you're having a bad practice. Translate it to the game. That's what we all want to see.
I had a buddy of mine. Matter of fact, he just had his birthday in the last week. That's a guy that we were sending the tux, the senior picture tux thing back and forth. And my buddy, in practice, in pickup, any sport, was one of the best dudes. One of the best dudes on the field, the court, the diamond.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
You put the uniform on, you flipped on the lights. Guess
Turn
what?
on the scoreboard.
Guess what?
He can't do it.
Couldn't do it. And it was all neck up.
Yep.
Because he was a phenomenal athlete in multiple sports. But the minute it went for good, either he just from the neck up, either it was from trying too hard, like you said, or all of a sudden freaking out in the moments because now it's for real. It's not practice anymore, not pickup. But now they're keeping score.
Yeah.
Now they're keeping scorebooks. Now you're playing another team. And it just didn't kick for him.
And you and I talk about this all the time. I mean, you can't ignore the noise around your team. You know what's being said about you. You know what these projections are and all this kind of stuff. You got to feel that pressure. You know that 2 weeks ago, you were a national seed. You were looking at being a host for a regional in the NCAA tournament. Now you're looking at being a 3 seed somewhere. Like that you can't tell me that doesn't affect this team. You can't tell me they're just plugging their ears and saying, we're not paying attention to that, because it's impossible not to.
That's what makes some of the world of sports tougher today, because you can't turn the noise off.
Sure.
The noise is everywhere. And if you're not looking at it, you got friends going, hey, bro, did you see this thing on Instagram or
Send
Twitter?
you a text message like, hey, look what they're saying about you. Like, you can try and ignore it all you want, but you can't escape it.
No. And so all of that comes into today. Can you block everything out? You come with another practice. You know, it's truly, and I know it's cliche, but it is 0-0 now.
Yep.
Forget what happened. Well, forget what happened the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks don't matter anymore. What matters is today. What matters is the minute you step on the field, whatever time this starts against Alabama, today matters. Tomorrow doesn't matter. Yesterday doesn't matter. Today. Yes, it's cliched, but you know what? There's a reason why there's cliches.
Because there's a reason they get said a lot.
Exactly. So that's what you got to do today. You got to just forget what's happened to you. It's a new world. It's a new day. You have played well. You beat North Carolina in a one-game situation. You took 2 out of 3 from Kentucky. You have won games. It's not like you. You won a game against A&M. You won a game against Arkansas. Look what you did to Vanderbilt.
And that's where
and Florida.
You can hopefully scrounge up some hope with this team, because we've seen them beat really good teams. We've seen them play really good baseball at times this year. We just hadn't seen that the past couple of weeks. Well,
the problem is, too, and this hurts you in tournaments, is there's been really no consistency since that nice little stretch where they, had the Florida, North Carolina, A&M 4 in a row or whatever it was.
Yeah. Well, and even that, you pitched really bad against Missouri. They were just a bad enough team that
you survived it.
You didn't.
So really, the pitching funk started against Missouri.
You've been basically going on for a month with bad pitching right now.
And you and I said it after that series. I mean, I think you hit it before I did, saying if your starters throw 5 innings this weekend against Georgia, you're going to be in a world of hurt.
And what happened? Exactly that.
World of hurt. I mean, did they even make 5 innings?
It was around there, something like that.
So it's been that's the problem here. You have not seen consistent play in such a long time to make you think they can go on a run. Now, can they? Sure. It's baseball. It's a peaks and valleys thing. Can you hit a peak? Be nice. Hopefully that would start today. And again, 1:15 our coverage gets going from Hoover right here on the game in Columbia and also in Myrtle Beach. And the game gets started roughly a half hour after the completion of Game 1, which is going on right now with LSU and Georgia. 5-1 right now, LSU. All right, it's a halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We'll hear from Mark Kingston, his thoughts in his presser before Hoover. That's coming up next here on the game. Halftime show. Day we get Hoover cooking here on the game in Columbia and also Myrtle Beach. Again, 1:15 our coverage starts. South Carolina, Alabama. One thing you can take advantage of if you're South Carolina, Alabama gives up some extra base hits. They lead the SEC in home runs allowed. They're near the bottom in doubles and triples allowed. So, again, work your count, get a favorable hitter's count, hunt your pitch, and when you get that pitch, Tyler Head, do damage.
Yeah, and so they're going to be going up against Greg Ferrone today, who did start the game that South Carolina did win in game number 3 against them earlier on in the year back in March. He went 5 1/3, gave up 5 hits and 3 runs with 4 strikeouts. So South Carolina did have some success against him earlier on in the season, and sounds like they're going to, because he threw 106 pitches in his start this past weekend against Auburn, so very much like South Carolina, I think they're going to kind of go with the bullpen type of approach, so you're probably going to see him for 2 or 3 innings and try and jump on him and make the rest of their bullpen work after that.
To our point, Greg Ferrone has thrown 65 1/3 innings, 12 home runs.
Yep.
But Hoover is not a home run haven.
It is not.
It's a pitcher's ballpark.
It's a 180 from what you had this past weekend in Knoxville.
Yes.
Which, unfortunately, South Carolina didn't really take advantage of that a whole lot. Yeah. But
so, I mean, again, this is not a ballpark or home runs at a premium, but Alabama gives up extra base hits.
Yep.
So, all right, let's get to Coach Kingston, his presser before the trip to Hoover. We'll start with Coach. Last week, obviously on Saturday, South Carolina basically pitched pitchers 2 innings, 2 innings, 2 innings, 2 innings, starting with our boy Dylan Eskew, who will start today. Here's Mark Kingston talking about using the Saturday blueprint today in Hoover.
Well, we gave up 4 runs to arguably the best offense in the country in their ballpark. So I think it was a good way to get guys the ball, not overexpose them. And look, if we can give up 4 runs, generally most days we're going to win.
Don't disagree with that in today's SEC. He's correct.
No, and Saturday was definitely the better of the 3 pitching performances that you had over the weekend. So there's something to that. Eskew is obviously somebody that you've trusted to start a lot this season. In fact, he did start against Alabama earlier on in the year. Unfortunately, that game did go sideways for him. 2 2/3, 3 hits, 5 runs, and just 1 strikeout against them in that 13-6 wild game that kind of got away from South Carolina in the late stages of that one there. So hopefully kind of gets back on the horse with this one. And look, it's going to be one of those things where he's going to go through the lineup one time, then you're going to go to somebody else. And who that is, we don't really know. He did say it's kind of all hands on deck and then everybody's available. So, I mean, do you turn to a Gainey immediately after that since he's your best option? Do you wait to use him in a closing situation, to use Veach in those middle innings like we talked about you should have done the other day? Like, you have a lot of options on the table here. I'm going to be very interested to see how Kingston and Matt Williams play this after Eskew is done.
Yeah, because, look, you could play it a bunch of different ways. I know, obviously, they have a plan going in. I almost feel like you got Eskew. I mean, Jones threw a couple innings Saturday, right?
Yeah. He did, and we have not seen the team in a there is no tomorrow scenario.
Yeah.
Because if you don't win today, you're out of the SEC tournament, and your theoretical next game would not be until the end of next week at a regional. So you're not having to worry about saving any arms. Yeah. Like, if you don't win today, there is no tomorrow. So I'm going to be interested to see what they decide to do with that in mind.
You know what I'd do with Gainey? He would be my high leverage piece for this game.
Okay.
It's not he's a closer. It's when this game becomes when it becomes tight and it's close and it's in the balance, he's coming in to get us out of trouble. So, for an example, I don't know if you remember this. I'll go Major League Baseball. Do you remember the Indians went to the World Series and lost to the Cubs?
Yes.
Do you remember how the Indians used Andrew Miller?
Sure.
Weapon.
Mm-hmm.
We might use you in the 5th. We might use you in the 9th. We're going to use you when the game's on the line, son.
Yeah.
You are you're the stopper. You know what you are? You ever seen Pulp Fiction?
Yes.
You're the cleaner. You're Harvey Keitel.
Yeah.
You're the cleaner. And you're going to come clean. And that's how I would use Gainey today.
And it makes sense. I mean, he's the best pitcher that you have on your staff as of right now, and I can't think of a better scenario to use him than there. Now, does that mean you go with maybe a Ty Good right after you have Dylan Eskew out there? I don't know.
Well, that's a great point. Think about this. Ty Good has thrown his best how? Coming in after the opener.
Right.
So maybe you slot Ty Good in after you throw Eskew for 2 or 3 innings, because that's Ty Good's, let's use it, comfort level.
Yes.
So maybe you put Ty Good in that spot. And obviously he's not using the mound in Knoxville, so maybe he'll be more comfortable. Then where do you slot? maybe you come back with Jones. I don't know. But for Gainey, I would hold him as the high leverage, come in and clean the spot. Now, that might not be till the 8th or 9th inning, Tyler. Or maybe you can get a multiple run lead to where you do. You bring him in the 8th and say, let's throw the last 2 innings, let's go to hell home.
Mm-hmm.
But I would hold Gainey for the high leverage, the game is teetering situation if it were me.
Yeah.
But I think you hit it on the head with you're starting with SQ. You bring Ty Good in his comfortable role of, okay, here you are. Maybe Good can give you 2 or 3. Then maybe do you go to Jones in that 2-inning scenario when you're only going through the order once?
Right.
And Jones doesn't have to go through the order multiple times. So that might be the way you mix and match this thing to get the ultimate out of your pitching staff at this point. We'll see. Well, we took care of that. Send that off to Matt and Mark. Our work here is done.
I don't think they're listening.
Our work here is done. Anyway. All right, Coach Kingston also talking about getting creative with the pitching staff. Cut 2, Tyler. Let's go with that one.
A little bit, yeah. I think that the biggest indication of why that has been really good for us this year, if you look at our midweek games, including in North Carolina, we gave up 1 run doing that. So I think it's something we need to look at, again, as we get into the postseason where it's going to be win or go home. We have to be creative. Right now, we don't have 3 lockdown weekend starters, so we've got to be creative. And having guys go through the lineup one time is a good way to do it because guys have been successful that way.
And with that, when you have your full complement of pitchers at your disposal, you can also be quick on the pull. If as soon as something starts going wrong, let's say SQ gets through an inning and a third and gives up 2 hits back to back and walks the third guy, it's like, all right, we're not going to take a chance on this. Take him out. We got literally everybody else that we can use. Mm-hmm. And if you have to burn through a couple pitches real quick before you find a guy that gets you in a rhythm, you can do that because you have that ability today.
Quick hook.
Yeah.
The old Sparky Anderson was the manager of the Tigers and Reds. He called him Captain Hook because he's pulling dudes.
Which again, that burns you on Friday with Gainey, where I get it, your best pitcher, you left him in there too long, things went sideways, and suddenly the game's out of reach. So today, if there's any kind of indication things are going wrong, walks, strikes, balls outside of the zone, get him out of there. You have more than enough to get you through 9 innings.
And now down the road, we'll have the conversation. Why are you in this predicament? Because that's a conversation.
That is the other side of this for sure, which can't be ignored. But for today, at least, because there is no tomorrow if you don't win today.
You have to win.
Do whatever you got to do.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that Tony Vitello has been doing this all year in Knoxville,
right?
Or most of the year in Knoxville.
Yeah, having 2 openers on a weekend in the SEC play is definitely unique, but number 1 team in the country.
Yeah, and so it's not like no one's done this. Now, it's rare. In a perfect world, you got 3 weekend starters, and then you kind of figure out midweek. But right now, and I think Mark's going down the right road here, right now, you don't have it.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, Eli Jones, what happened to Friday night Eli? He's gone. You could say once you move him to Saturday, he hasn't been the same pitcher, to be fair.
And again, I'm glad that this is a single elimination for today because there's not going to be, we want this guy for tomorrow. No. Well, we need to make sure we have this guy ready. Forget about that. Screw that. You don't have that if you don't win today.
No. And basically the leaving a guy in a bullpen for this certain situation, done.
No.
Done. No. You got to, again, empty the magazine, man.
And if if you have to go into tomorrow and you don't have any options,
guess what?
Figure it out tomorrow.
Yeah, because you're in double elimination now.
Exactly. You got 2 games to figure it out.
So you could come have some dude throw underhand. Who cares? All right, we'll jump back. We do have some more Mark Kingston cuts. Some interesting things going on in the world of college football.
To say the least.
Wow. We'll come back. If you're Billy Napier.
Do you think he just looked up at the sky and said, why me?
I should have just stayed in Louisiana. Life was so much easier in Louisiana. We'll get to the latest trial and tribulation of Billy Napier and the Florida football program coming up. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We only go to 1:15, then Gamecock baseball at Hoover right here on the Game in Columbia and Myrtle Beach. what we are talking about here on the game. Obviously, Carolina baseball this afternoon, 1:15 our coverage gets started. South Carolina taking on Alabama. Now, this very interesting story coming out of Gainesville, Florida. Wow. I tell you. I'm starting to really feel sorry for Billy Napier. Even though he might have been, again, he might have done something here he shouldn't have or whatever. And he may be in the wrong, but it's just, man. Woo. Former University of Florida football recruit Jaden Rashada is suing Coach Billy Napier along with a big-time Gator booster and others, claiming they defrauded him out of millions of dollars by backing out of a promised $13.85 million agreement after the quarterback turned down offers to other programs. Now, I find this interesting. Now, in theory, I am totally down with this because what goes on, from what I understand, is that obviously you cannot sign any type of, NIL agreement until you've signed your letter of intent, right? And you're on, you are now a member of the team. Then you sign your NIL agreement. That's what I'm led to believe and what I've read. So if that's the case, you can agree in principle to an NIL agreement, but no one can sign anything to make it legal until after you signed your letter of intent and you're a member of the program and the university. Well, that can lead to this kind of mess. And Jaden Rashada is not the only guy who's been offered something, and once he showed up on campus, well, I know we offered you that. We offered you $500,000. We got some Five Guys gift cards. Don't get me wrong. I would love me some Five Guys gift cards. But anyway, it's just, this happens. This happens in a lot of different places. And it happened with Jaden Rashada. Very high level happened with Jaden Rashada. And at the end of the day, he's decided to fight back by legally filing suit, saying, you promised me this, you promised me that, you didn't come through. I turned down another offer where I could have got, X amount of dollars, but I turned down that offer because you offered me this wow offer more than that offer, and then you didn't come through. Because according to, and again, this is the attorney of Jaden Rashada, basically, Rashada was promised $13.85 million. A guy named Hugh Hathcock is a guy that's given a lot of money to Gator Athletics, and he's been in this NIL space and his business, Velocity Automotive in Destin. So this guy's a high roller in the Gator family. Now, Hathcock approached Rashada, according to the Rashada side of this, when Rashada had visited Florida in June 2022. Also talking about a job for his dad and all these other things, and Hathcock put a dollar figure on the deal at that point, $11 million. By then, Rashada had made a verbal commitment to Miami, getting an offer of $9.5 million, which we had all heard of. Now, according to the filing, Florida's pressure campaign came back with an offer of $13.85 million over 4 years. 5.35 from Hathcock, including $500,000 signing bonus through Hathcock's business, Velocity Automotive, and the remainder paid through Hathcock's NIL collective, Gator Guard. All right, so things got a little sideways after the flip. On December 6, 2022, less than a month after Rashada announced his flip to Florida, he received a letter from the Gator Collective purporting to terminate the $13.85 million NIL deal. Sources familiar with the negotiations told ESPN that the version of the contract Rashada signed, remember, after the flip, included a provision that it could be terminated only with cause, although the letter didn't note a specific cause. After that, in what the lawsuit calls a violation of Florida law. Napier and others told Rashada they would make good on the promised deal, and Castro Walker, another member of this whole thing, later told Rashada's agent that Hathcock and the Gator Guard Collective would personally guarantee the $13.85 million. 3 days later, Rashada did get $150,000. That money was given back to John Ruiz, the Miami booster, who was involved in the $9.5 million deal at Miami, to avoid potential litigation. Then this happens. Rashada is supposed to get $500,000. And it doesn't happen. That's when Rashada, remember the letter of intent, and then Rashada backed out?
No, I remember. This was right around the time when I started here, because it was in January when he was on campus at Florida. Like, he was enrolled in classes, ready to go. And when he's like, all right, where's this money you guys promised me? They're like, yeah, we don't have all of it.
Yeah, the $500,000 wasn't given to him like promised, and that's when Rashada said, I'm out.
Yeah, well, as he should have.
As he should have. And again, everything is always fluid and everything's case by case. But in this case, Jaden Rashada, yes, definitely go after the University of Florida and anybody involved.
Well, it's not the University of Florida.
I know, not the university. It's
the
Billy
university
Napier.
Is exempt from this. It is Billy Napier and this collective.
The guy Hathcock and the other guy, Castro Walker.
Yeah, and this collective, by the way, doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
It went under after this whole fiasco played out. But yes, absolutely. Like you, regardless if it was justified or not, you were promised almost $14 million to come to the University of Florida. You sign the letter of intent, all that kind of stuff. You get there and they can't pay you your money. Absolutely, do this.
Yeah, and I hope this works and Rashada wins, because this okie doke, this bait and switch, because of the loophole and how this has to be done. Like I said this earlier, you think Jaden Rashada is the only guy that's gone through this?
No, of course not. He's the most high-profile guy that's gone through this, but there's got to be countless other stories of maybe we're talking in the six figures or something like that, but you're promised money and it doesn't show up. And that's something that I think coming away from this, I think a lot of people learned. Like, man, there's some bad actors out there. There are some people that want to sell you the world and then not pay it off for you. And I think that's made people a little bit weary when making these deals. And like, okay, Nico got the huge deal from Tennessee, but we have not seen as many of these high-profile deals for unproven guys just yet, because that was the thing about him. He was a four-star quarterback that, his upside potential is fantastic. He hadn't taken a snap in college yet. You don't know if he's going to be worth $14 million.
I agree.
And I can't imagine how many other football players' NIL stuff are wrapped up in just $14 million alone. So that's a large investment for somebody that you don't know about.
See, I think, again, not going off the chart here, but I really believe that once you get an agreement together, how you're going to run college athletics, the NFL has a rookie salary cap. The NBA has a rookie salary cap. Even Major League Baseball has rookie minimums.
Yep.
There should be some kind of freshman cap where or if you want to offer a high school kid, that's fine, but there's got to be a cap to what you can offer. And it's got to be built in and baked into this agreement. And typically, everybody agrees to this because they want to hold down the newbies' contracts anyway, because, again, they're unproven. So I think something like that has to happen. But going back to this point, look, the NIL world is here. And one thing the NCAA has to do with their ancient rules is there's got to be something in there that the NIL deals have to be signed before these players, before they come on campus to kill this loophole. They've got to figure a way, and you got to find smarter people than me to do it, but you got to figure the way to cut this loophole to where I can't say, we're going to give you $1 billion, Tyler, to play for us, and you show up on campus. How about a craft beer card?
Yeah.
That's got to be stopped.
And the way craft beer card is.
I mean, don't get me wrong, love me some craft beer. But anyway, it's just the idea that for NIL purposes, you've got to figure out a way to let these kids, not just the high school kids coming, but kids coming from other programs. So the same thing's happening to them at some point, probably.
Right.
You've got to cut this loophole to where these deals have to be legal before you come on campus to stop this mess.
Yep.
Jaden Rashada, go get him, Bob.
And you see Kirby Smart signed off on this? Or Kirby Smart was aware of it was happening and didn't prevent it from happening.
How about that?
The game in Jacksonville is going to be fun this year.
Uh-huh.
I think Rashada may come in for a garbage time touchdown.
You think?
I think so.
All right. We'll jump in the Firehouse Subtext, the hour at 803-404-6100. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, up until 1:15. Then Carolina baseball from Hoover here on the game in Columbia and Myrtle Beach. Time for our Firehouse Subtext of the hour at 803-404-6100. Again, baseball 1:15. Our coverage starts from Hoover, South Carolina, taking on Alabama. Single elimination. this afternoon. If Gamecocks win, then it's tomorrow at 1:15. Our coverage will start as South Carolina would take on Arkansas. All right, what do you got?
Yeah, so Brad weighs in. He says Gainey should not pitch today. He threw almost 100 pitches on Friday. 93 was his total. So you're right on that window of almost 4 days of total rest. And again, I think everybody's just going to be slotted for one time through the order. So if you had to use him, like I said, maybe in the back end, 8th or 9th inning, I don't think he's going to be throwing a ton of pitches. But as Kingston said, everybody's available. So that means Garrett Gainey's available too.
Or this, you're up by a run in the 6th inning, a couple guys get on base.
Yeah, if you need somebody to just get you through that inning.
I need somebody to get me through an inning or get a couple outs.
So I don't think you're going to nobody's going to be expected to come in and work any long period of time. But, yeah, if you need him for a couple pitches, you got him in your back pocket, use him.
That's what I'm saying. He's your weapon. He's your high-leverage weapon where you need to get out of something.
Right.
And it is true, Texter's point, 93 pitches. You got to be careful how many pitches he throws, but you need all hands on deck today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because look, metrics tell you they're in the NCAA tournament. Projections tell you they're in the NCAA tournament. But I'm just saying, human beings pick this thing, and you're on a 7-game slide.
Right.
Somebody in that room is going to stand up and go, we really want to put a team on a 7-game losing streak in our tournament?
Can't take that risk.
Can't take the risk. But good text, though. And we don't disagree with the theory of how much you use them. You do have to be careful because of the pitch count. But to me, if there's a situation you need them, you got to bring them in.
And again, if Coach Kingston said yesterday that, hey, Garrett Gainey's our one guy that's not available, okay, take that off the table. But the fact that he said everybody's available means if you can find a way to use them, you're going to use them.
Absolutely. All right, back to Coach Kingston real quick, Tyler. Let's grab the cut 7. Confidence in making the NCAA tournament. Again, the metrics say South Carolina is in. 13 SEC wins, top 30 RPI gets you in typically. So the metrics are on the Gamecock side. The eye test or the struggling at the end of the year, the human element of how recency bias does come into play, probably not on your side, or definitely not on your side. But here's Coach Kingston talking about confidence in making the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no precedent for a team having 13 wins, having a better than 30 RPI, and not getting in the NCAA tournament. They're going to pick the best 64 teams. We have a 19 RPI. The teams that we have played that also have 13 wins in our league, we were 6-3 against this year. The resume is very strong. It's just we happen to play the best schedule in the country. Played 18 games against the top 7 teams in the RPI. It's a ridiculously hard schedule. We endured it, we survived it, and we still came out the other side with a 19 RPI. So that's a slam dunk NCAA team.
Again, metric-wise, absolutely. You are on it, man, and I agree with you. But again,
we're not the ones making this decision. You're not convincing us.
No, but here's my thing. I think I said this yesterday, and this is not. I'm not bagging on South Carolina or bagging on any of this stuff. I just think in general, yes, playing a difficult schedule should get you some love. But you know what else? How about winning?
Yeah.
How about what did we say yesterday? 5-13 against the top 7 RPI you played against?
Yes, you are 9-18 in quad 1 games, which means you've won a third of them. So yes, there is something to be said about playing a tough schedule. But at the same time, you should also, if you want to be considered as one of the best teams, you should also regularly beat those teams on your schedule to put yourself in that same conversation.
Exactly. It's all. You know, at some point you got to win these games. You just can't play. You can't play really good teams and always be on the losing end.
Here's the thing: if we're just relying on tough schedules, Vanderbilt should be in the college football playoff every year because they have the toughest schedule in the entire country. But no, you actually have to start winning some of those games and beating some of those quality opponents. And I get it. Yeah, we beat in Kentucky. You beat a Vanderbilt team that isn't as good as we thought they were going to be back earlier on in the season. But again, when you face the 2 best teams that you played these past 2 weeks in Georgia and Tennessee, top 10 in the RPI, ranked very high, all that kind of stuff, you got blown out, or you didn't get blown out. You got beat by both those teams handily in some of those games.
Yeah, and that's my point here. Look, not trying to be mean. I'm just saying we always jump up and down about, okay, and Mark is right. They play a difficult schedule. If you look at strength of schedule in America, South Carolina, according to the metric, Warren Nolan's metric here, strength of schedule 7th in the country. It was a difficult schedule. No one's arguing that. But my point is, when you're 9-18 against Quad One, and when you look at those top 7 RPI teams that you've played, you won one series, and then you beat North Carolina in the midweek.
Yep.
You lost a series to A&M. You lost a series to Arkansas. You lost a series to Tennessee. You lost a series to Georgia. Got beat 2 close games by Clemson, and you couldn't finish. But you would have lost the series regardless if you'd have played the third game or not. You won one of those series.
Yep.
At some point, winning's got to matter too.
That's right.
Especially if you want to be considered a top dog, it's not just playing the other top dogs. It's occasionally taking the meal from the top dog. So we'll see what happens. I feel like metric-wise, they would be in if you look at the metrics. It's just you don't want to go in on a 7-game skid. All right, we'll come back here. Football for a little bit. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors on the Game. (803-875-MENS) is the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Just get past all of the thoughts in your head about, I got to go in and I got to talk to people about my personal issues or stuff that's going on with me. I don't want to do that. I hate that idea. Sometimes you got to. You got to go find out what's going on and get yourself better. And if you're having trouble sleeping, you're having brain fog, your workouts aren't good. Your recovery from workouts not good. Your lack of life drive, whether it's professional drive, personal drive, sexual drive, whatever, it's just not happening anymore. And you're concerned. You're just not telling anybody because we're dudes. Men's Clinic of South Carolina, you go in with a consultation. If they think it's low T, they do lab work. If it is low T, they will put you on, get this, a personalized program just for you to get you back to feeling like you again. It's not cookie cutter. It's personalized for you. Men's Clinic of South Carolina, 803-875-MENS. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. One last segment that we're going to be getting to Gamecock baseball coverage starting at 1:15. Half hour after LSU, Georgia, then South Carolina and Alabama with Derek and Stuart on the call. Right now, LSU, number 11 seed, leading the 6 seed Georgia 6-1, seventh inning. And again, we got one eyeball on it. Can't tell you exactly what's going on pitch by pitch, but here's my first thought. LSU is 5th in the SEC in ERA.
Yep.
Obviously, they haven't had the season they were expecting to have, but they've been above average as a pitching staff. Georgia rakes, number 2 in the SEC in most offensive categories. But you're playing in what? A big ballpark, right?
Yep.
That favors pitching. Georgia's pitching, not that great for the whole season. Been better lately, but still not the strength of the team, right? So this ballpark almost plays into more of LSU's strength this year than Georgia's strength. And in a one-game elimination situation, all you need is a couple guys to come out and perform well, right?
Yeah, and LSU's offense kind of been the story of this game. They jumped on Jarvis Evans, right from the jump, had a bunch of bases loaded situations, been able to play 6 runners so far. So they are outpacing one of the best offenses in all of college baseball right now, and doing so, I don't believe, they haven't hit any home runs today, so doing it all inside the park.
And LSU in the bottom half of the league offensively.
Yes.
This year. So
hey, you know what? Weird things happen in Hoover, man.
Mm-hmm. And again, when you're a team whose calling card is offense and you're playing in a big ballpark.
So you know what that means? Carolina's going to win a 1-0 pitcher's duel today.
How great would that be? That would be fantastic. All right, a little bit of football, because we don't have a ton of time. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. It's interesting. Robert Saleh says that our guy Aaron Rodgers doing everything at OTAs. Everything. So we'll see.
And did he set out OTAs in Green Bay?
He set out a lot of OTAs in Green Bay.
But last year with the Jets, he actually was, if I believe, a full participant in them. Like that, because that was kind of the story of early summer. It's like, man, Aaron Rodgers seems so invigorated and so juiced to be, back with a new team or whatever. Like he was actually taking part in these things, and it sounds like it's the same case again.
Well, that's the thing. Look, to be fair to Aaron Rodgers, and look, the thing with Aaron Rodgers, really quick, it feels like this. It feels like the more we've gotten to learn and know about Aaron Rodgers, the less we like Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, absolutely. I wish I knew less than half the things that I knew about Aaron Rodgers, because the more he likes to talk and the more he likes to tell us about what goes on inside that steel trap of a mind of his, the less I like him.
It's just, remember when he was very private?
Oh, yeah, when we wouldn't talk about anything.
Remember when that whole thing hit with one of those reality shows, The Bachelor or whatever, and his brother or whoever was on that thing?
Jordan was one of the contestants, and there was they staged the thing about like, oh, Aaron's going to come to dinner, but then he didn't come to dinner. It's like, well, Aaron hasn't talked to his family in 12 years.
Right, and so it's like, that was the super private Aaron Rodgers, and I respected that.
Sure.
And he stopped being super private the last few years. It's almost like, can you go back to being private, please?
Like, I don't need to see you on McAfee every single week. I've learned too much.
Yeah, and so Aaron Rodgers, but to his credit, putting that aside, he seems to really be all in with the Jets since he signed last year.
Yes.
And I think there is a thing with him that he wants to show Green Bay and everybody else that he's still got game. And he's still Aaron Rodgers. And if it doesn't work for Aaron Rodgers, it's not going to be because Aaron Rodgers isn't all in. How's that sound?
Right.
So we'll see. Having an offensive line that can actually block would be a good idea this year. They've tried to improve it, to be fair. We'll see.
Well, I thought it was funny that the NFL gave him yet another Monday night debut this year, this time on the road in San Francisco. Like, oh, this can't possibly go wrong a second time, right?
Yeah, because San Francisco doesn't rush the passer at all. How about the NFL saying that the Jets owe them one? About primetime games, because they're putting the Jets back on primetime this year. It was like, basically, Jets, you owe us because last year we put you on primetime.
Yeah, well,
and look what you did.
So the Jets, the Cowboys, and I think the Ravens all have the most primetime games this year.
Yeah.
And again, that's the Aaron Rodgers effect.
Sure,
I mean,
it is.
there's, as cool as Sauce Gardner is, it's not the reason why they're on,
No.
prime time. Like, it's literally people want to see Aaron Rodgers. I mean, how many of us were watching Monday night? And yeah, we're going to watch anyway because we're freaks about this.
Yep.
But how many of like the more casual sports fans tuned in for that Monday night game? Like, oh, I hear Aaron Rodgers is with the Jets now. Let me check that out. Like, they know which players draw attention, and Aaron Rodgers does that.
And guess what? We're going to do it again this year because Aaron Rodgers is now drawing more attention. Can he come back from the Achilles?
Right.
Can he be the quarterback he used to be? Can the Jets actually protect him so he doesn't get killed?
That was the funny thing is a couple weeks later, you're watching a Monday or a Sunday night game, and it's like, oh, Zach Wilson is starting Monday Night Football. Well, this wasn't the plan.
No, not at all. Hey, after going about 30 years without selling out its season tickets, Colorado Buffalo football program announced season tickets have sold out for a second straight year.
Huh, that's weird. Something happening over there in Boulder by chance?
The AD, Rick George, selling out season tickets for the second year in a row shows how strong our fan base is and continued impact and trust in Coach Prime. Now, the second part of that is what matters.
Yeah.
Coach Prime has brought electricity to the program. Look, and that's the thing. We can sit here and talk about Deion Sanders and how that team was not very well built where it mattered, the line of scrimmage, which is a head scratcher. We can talk about how that team cratered after September. We can talk about the revolving door on both ends, coming in, coming out.
Right.
But the fan base there, Deion Sanders is a compelling character. And they're going to show up again this year
For sure.
to see what Coach Prime's going to do. And that team was a heck of a lot better last year than it was the year before when it won one game.
And that's the thing is they garnered so many attentions and so much attention last offseason because, again, here comes Deion. You know, what's he going to be able to do at Power 5? And they hit the jackpot in that week number 1 game, beating TCU, again, a team that just came off playing a national championship, and suddenly everybody starts comparing Colorado to 2019 LSU, and it's like, hey, now, those of us that watch this on a week-in, week-out basis, we're like, all right, let's pump the brakes here a little bit, let's see what happens, and then soon they're blowing a 29-point lead to Stanford in the middle of the night on a Friday, and we're not talking about the team as much anymore, so they have another chance to kind of reset that momentum going into a new conference, the Big 12. I am weary of them playing North Dakota State on a Thursday night in week number 1 because that might go sideways on them. And if they lose to North Dakota State, that hype might just go right out the window in week number 1.
Yeah. Yes, it might. So we'll see. But again, for right now, what you want, you still got a fan base that's all excited about Coach Prime in Boulder. And that's the important thing. I mean, obviously, wins and losses would be what matters.
Well, you and I have talked about all he needs to get to is a bowl. If he gets that team to a bowl game, they were 1-11 a couple seasons ago. He will have rebuilt them into a team that can win, and then he can leave.
And that's what he'll do. We didn't get to this yesterday. TJ Sanders named the 51st best player in On3's top 100 rankings of college football players. Only Gamecock on the list. Juice Wells was in the 90s on that list.
He was.
Like 91, 93, something like that. The SEC obviously had, 7 of the top 10 players, if my memory serves me. A lot of linemen this year in the top 100.
Yes.
But, I mean, obviously, Bama and the LSUs and the Georgias, they have most of them. But it was a very interesting list yesterday. The top 100 on 3, TJ Sanders finishing 51st. James Pierce, if you're wondering, the edge pass rusher from Tennessee was first. Luther Burden, wide receiver, Missouri, was second. Kelvin Banks, offensive tackle, Texas, third. Carson Beck, quarterback, Georgia, fourth. Will Campbell, offensive tackle, LSU, fifth. Mason Graham, defensive lineman, Michigan, sixth. Deion Walker, defensive lineman, Kentucky, 7. Will Johnson, corner, 8 from Michigan. Malachi Stark, safety, Georgia, 9. And then the kid McMillan, the wide receiver at Arizona, was 10. So that's it right there. And TJ Sanders checked in at 51. All right, Gamecock baseball is coming up here on the game. Taking the ball, Dylan Eskew for South Carolina. We'll see how that goes. Alabama, the Crimson Tide, they will counter with a pitcher that South Carolina saw during the 3-game series, and that would be Greg Ferrone. So that's a pitching matchup. Our coverage starts in a matter of seconds. South Carolina wins. We'll do it again same time tomorrow against Arkansas. Tyler, nice job, my friend. Stuart and Derek coming up on the call. South Carolina and Alabama, the SEC tournament in Hoover coming up here on the game in Columbia, and also the game in Myrtle Beach coming up next here on the game.